Welcome to the underground, you rebel scum! This is the American Expat, and today I have the privilege of introducing you to this, the Sony RX100 VII. Yes, a compact point-and-shoot camera released in 2019 by Sony. It's a small camera, but it comes with some pretty incredible things inside. Now, I know it only has a 1-inch sensor at 20.1 megapixels, but it does have this pretty nifty Zeiss lens, a 24 to 200 millimeter focal length. It can open up to f2.8 if you have it at its maximum width, which is pretty cool. It's got a lot of other capabilities. It's got different kinds of styles of, I guess you'd call it baked-in photo stuff. It can record in S-Log3, which, if you're familiar with Sony's, it's the logarithmic mode, so that you can get a greater dynamic range in your video. Yeah, I want to try this thing out. I want to put it through its paces and see if it's worth the $1,300 price tag. Yeah, you're probably looking at this little point-and-shoot camera and thinking, it's probably better to go ahead and get like a used SLR or used interchangeable lens camera, kind of like the Sony A7 III or something like that, as opposed to getting one of these. But hey, those are big and bulky and hard to carry around, whereas this has everything that you need built in right here in this little tiny package that can fit in your pocket. So is it worth it? Let's grab a cup of coffee and then we'll go out and see what it can do. Thanks for sticking with us. We've just started off and we're already trying out the Sony RX100 VII. If you look at the bottom left of the screen, you'll see indicated there if the RX100 VII is being used, and on the bottom right if it's the Sony A7 IV. Try not to judge the little Sony by what you see from the A7 IV. Remember, that is a full-frame camera and the little Sony only has a 1-inch sensor. We're heading out to Antelope Island near Salt Lake City for this first part. The island offers incredible scenery as well as some wildlife for us to try the camera on. By the way, don't get close to the bison if you come here. They're a bit cranky. And we will be seeing some bison on this video. I am noticing that the RX100 VII is a bit noisy when recording in S-Log3. Maybe it's too much for the little sensor to handle. We'll have to play with the settings a bit to see if we can improve it. Well, we made a mistake when we drove out here. I didn't check to see that the battery was charged on this little Sony RX100 VII. So it's almost dead. I got some nice footage there driving in, but yeah, it's almost dead. So I'm going to try and get what I can, and hopefully I don't have to go back and, yeah, I also did not bring the charging cable, so my mistake. But, well, we'll take some photos and do what we can, I guess, here on the island. I'm not that far away from home. I guess I could go and get the charging cable, and I'd have a little bit of juice by the time I got back, right? Such a professional production here. Yeah, I had to go back for the charging cable. Well, we should be able to have better luck now that the camera's actually charged. And this is a really beautiful spot here. I'm not quite to the island, I'm still on the causeway, but I always love the way these mountains look. Now we're kind of midday, so it's a little bit harsher, but yeah, you know. Might as well take the shot, right? The S-Log3 footage is still a bit noisy, but the photos look great. Well, there's all kinds of cars going through here. And I can tell you that I cannot see anything on the LED screen. I don't know if there's a way to make it brighter or not. I couldn't find anything to make it brighter. I think it's just that it's so bright out here. But what do you guys think? Is it kind of grainy, the video? I mean, that's what we're using right now is the Sony Cybershot RX100 VII. How's it looking? I mean, like I said, I'm not expecting miracles. It's got a 1-inch sensor. It's got a good lens. It's Zeiss, right? f2.8. It only goes to, yeah. Not expecting miracles, but it's an expensive camera, you know. Point and shoot. I guess you're paying for the compactness. You can't expect so much in such a small package, I suppose. But yeah, hopefully I'm actually framed. We better get down this causeway and get to the island. You can brighten the screen in the viewfinder. Antelope Island isn't the only island in the Great Salt Lake, but it is the largest and most famous. It's also the most accessible. The other two large islands are Fremont Island and Stansbury Island. I've heard that there's a dirt causeway out to Stansbury Island, which I will have to explore at some point, but Fremont Island can only be reached by boat. Antelope Island gets its name from the pronghorn that are sometimes out here, though I haven't seen any in quite some time. There's also mule deer and other wildlife in addition to the bison that you shouldn't get close to. This is one of my favorite spots for photos. It's called Buffalo Point, and it does make for a nice photo. The little Sony is doing well so far when it comes to photos, but that S-Log3 footage is a bit noisy. I mentioned that we would be seeing the bison in this video. It's good this camera has a zoom lens. We should be able to get a good photo of some bison without getting close enough to get trampled or something. There's one now. Maybe not National Geographic level, but it took a nice photo, I'd say. Now we're leaving the island for a bit and going through the Ogden Canyon to visit the Ogden Valley to try recording without S-Log3, and to take some photos in another of my favorite spots on the shore of Pineview Reservoir. The canyon was carved by the Ogden River. The Ogden in all of the names comes from Peter Skeen Ogden, who was a Canadian fur trader back in the day. Okay, I know that this thing is sort of grainy. Oh my. And it's kind of dark out here. I have dropped the S-Log3, which this thing is capable of doing, and I'm just going to see what its own colors look like. But yeah, this is, well, it was a beautiful shot. Yeah, let's take a photo of the lake. Hopefully the sun will come back enough to make it a more beautiful shot again. I have another, yeah, we'll try this. We'll try this. Not so much dynamic range without S-Log3, but it is sharper and clearer. The photo is nice as well. Okay, back through the canyon and out to the island again. There is apparently a marathon that goes through the canyon in warmer parts of the year. Antelope Island used to be privately owned. It was used for a ranch, but these days it's owned by the state. There was talk about it being made into a national park, but I guess the feds own enough of Utah already. Okay, there's a couple of things that I want to test over here because it's become apparent to me that the troubles that we were having with the S-Log3 situation, if you saw how grainy it was, it's because the ISO was too high. Yeah, I was leaving it up to the camera. Apparently I've got to take the training wheels off if I want it to have any sort of clarity, or at least for more fairness. I mean, it's a 1-inch sensor. I can't expect the ISO to do incredible things, so let's go ahead and get this thing on here. In video mode. Let's see, what are we at here? Yep, okay, I've set it down to 800, so hopefully that's gonna do the trick. Well, am I any clearer this time in S-Log3 on this thing? I don't know how much of the background you can see. I mean, the whole idea with the S-Log3 is that we're gonna get clearer picture. Hopefully you can actually, I mean, the wind is blowing, and well, it was blowing before in a previous video, and yeah, that can really mess up the sound, especially on this little thing. It does, I think, have compensation for the wind. I didn't really do anything with it, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Hopefully you guys can hear me though, and I'm clear. Well, I don't expect it to be as good as this, the Sony a7 IV, but hey, maybe it'll be better than it was. I'm hoping. I don't, this is an expensive camera. It's a nice little camera. So I expect that it's gonna work. It should get a pretty good picture. Well, now let's go ahead and put this thing into aperture mode and try some of the different styles that come built into the camera. You know, instead of shooting RAW. We've seen the RAW photos. Now it's time to try JPEG with these different styles. See how it turns out. There's a beautiful background behind us, kind of. I'm gonna use that and take these photos. Let's take a look and see what they're like. No surprise here, the photos look pretty good. If you don't have experience working with photo editing software like Lightroom or just don't want to go through the trouble, these look pretty good right out of the camera. Look at that, all ready for social media. I'm still trying to work out the S-Log3 situation. I've lowered the ISO, which is the artificial brightening the camera can do, but it's still looking a little washed out and magenta-like. It may just be the limitations of the little 1-inch sensor. Okay, now I've got it out here on the tripod to see how well this S-Log3 looks when we're doing this. Got it at 800 ISO, which is the native ISO, which you're supposed to set it to on the Sony a7 IV. Of course, this isn't a Sony a7 IV, but we've already seen that it's a bit clearer when you do this, so should look a little better, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I also noticed that there was a severe, well, not severe. Everything looked slightly magenta in the other video. So I have taken the training wheels off yet again, removed more of the privileges of the camera's computer, and changed the white balance so that it's no longer automatic. Hopefully that does something. I'm hoping. We'll see. I can't tell yet because I'm recording the video, but hopefully all of that magenta, the sort of pinkish color, is no longer there because that's not how things actually look. And it was so bad I couldn't do anything about it. Yeah, we'll see if this fixes it. And if this is indeed something that can be used regularly, if you only had access to this camera for some reason, if you decided that you wanted to use this camera for YouTube or vlogs or whatever it is you can think of that would use this camera for, will it work in S-Log3 so that you get the good dynamic range? Well, I don't know. Is it? Is it working right now? Like I said, I don't know yet. But if it is, then that's great. Like I said, I already fixed some of the noise problems. We'll see what this 1-inch sensor can do. Not bad. Now let's see how the little Sony does when it gets a bit darker. Once the bison get across the street, that is. For that, I'm heading back to Bison Point where you can see incredible sunsets. Looks good. Good dynamic range. Good color capture. Oops. That's a bit better. Well, what'd you think of the little Sony, the Sony RX100 VII? Is it worth the $1,300 price tag? I'm gonna go ahead and say it, for me, it's not worth the $1,300 price tag. Because, well, and that's maybe not a fair assessment because I am perfectly willing to sacrifice carrying all of the bulky equipment and extra lenses and that sort of thing to get a really good photo, which the RX100 VII does take incredibly good photos, but they start to kind of fall apart as you expand and, blow them up a little bit. And by blow them up, I mean enlarge. When you really zoom in, it's not, of course, going to be the same as a full-frame camera. It's a 1-inch sensor. In the video, I do a lot of recording in S-Log3 or S-Log or whatever the camera is capable of doing. That camera can do S-Log3, but as we saw, it just wasn't quite as good as what I can get from the full-frame camera. And of course, that should be expected. It's not going to be as good as a full-frame camera is able to do. But I guess it was okay once we started playing with the settings. It was okay. but it was a bit noisy. It was a bit bland, flat, washed out sort of. So I'm gonna say it doesn't work for me, but does it work for you? From what you saw in the video today, is it good enough for you? You'll have to let me know in the comments. And I guess I'll leave it at that. We'll see you guys in the next one.
ไฟพะวงหลงเฝ้าสาวเจ้าบางประกงทางห้วยงงหลงเกิน